Chapter 29, The Weight of Fate. The elves moved swiftly, their hands delicate but sure as they lifted Sir Aldrich's unconscious body onto a stretcher woven of enchanted vines and silken cloth. The air was thick with the scent of healing herbs, a soft hum of elvish magic resonating through the grove as the healers worked to stabilize his lifeless form. Though his chest still rose and fell with each breath, his mind was far away, lost in the depths of the battle he had fought within the dreamscape. Elowen sat nearby, staring at nothing, her hands clenched in her lap. The events of the past hours had unravelled something inside her, a thread that once bound her sense of control, now snapped under the weight of her own existence. She was the Black Crown, the key to the gods' return, and despite everything they had done, despite Sir Aldrich's sacrifice, the only true answer remained, the one she feared most. The Archfey stood among the elves, their ancient eyes settling upon the fallen knight. Their voice, distant yet melodic, carried through the grove like the whisper of leaves. "His fate is uncertain," the Archfey spoke, their gaze shifting to Lyra and Selene. "His mind wanders the distant realms, shattered but not lost. The goddess of nature safeguards all souls, even those torn from their waking selves. Given time and the proper magic, he may yet return." A spark of hope flickered in Lyra's heart, but it was a fragile thing. The cost of time was not theirs to pay. The god's influence grew with each passing moment, and the question that lingered in her mind was one they all silently shared. Would it even matter if he woke, if the world was lost? As the night deepened, silence settled over the camp. Lyra and Selene sat together near the edge of the grove, where moonlight spilled through the branches, turning everything to silver. Neither spoke, for words felt hollow. The warmth of battle had faded, leaving only the cold aftermath of reality. Lyra turned a small amulet over in her fingers, the silver chain glinting under the moon's light. It was Aldrich's, something he had always worn beneath his armour, a simple charm, etched with the symbol of his homeland. She gripped it tighter, feeling the weight of it press against her palm. Selene sat beside her, knees drawn to her chest, her head resting against them. Her daggers remained sheathed, but her fingers traced the hilts absent-mindedly, as if trying to remember the feeling of movement, of action. "I don't know how to do this," Lyra finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to keep going." Selene didn't answer right away. Instead, she closed her eyes, inhaling the crisp night air. "Neither do I." A bitter chuckle escaped Lyra's lips. "Then what are we supposed to do?" Selene exhaled slowly. "We prepare." The words felt empty, but they were the only ones that mattered. They sat in silence again, the weight of fate pressing against them. The choice had not changed. The heavenly chains were the only way forward, and if they did not form them, then perhaps it wouldn't matter who lived or who died. Perhaps in the end none of them would be left to see it. Chapter 29, The Weight of Fate, Part 2. The night pressed against them, the silence stretching between the three like an unspoken truth. Elowen sat with her knees drawn to her chest, staring at the dim embers of their dying campfire. Lyra and Selene sat close, their presence offering a quiet reassurance, though the weight in Elowen's heart did not lessen. "It isn't fair," Elowen murmured, breaking the stillness. "Aldrich fought so hard, and now he's just gone. And we still have to keep moving like it doesn't matter." Selene's gaze softened. "It matters," she said firmly. "Every step we take matters. But we can't afford to stop, Elowen. We don't have that luxury." Lyra, sitting cross-legged beside her, let out a slow breath. "We have to prepare for the truth," she said. "You know what comes next." Elowen closed her eyes. She did know. Selene would be the next to leave them, a sacrifice to ensure their survival. Elowen's throat tightened. "I don't want that," she whispered. Selene's lips curled into a soft, sad smile. "I know." For a moment, the only sound was the rustling of the leaves in the night wind. Lyra reached out, taking Elowen's hand in hers, a rare gesture from the normally composed elf. "We will find another way," she promised. "But if we don't, then I swear to you, Selene's sacrifice will not be in vain." Selene let out a short laugh, shaking her head. "You make it sound like I'm dying tomorrow." But none of them laughed with her.
"Return to the seer!"
The path back to the seer's hidden refuge was heavy with unease. He had been the one to reveal Elowen's dark truth, And now they sought him once more, not for answers, but for certainty. The seer was worse than before, his eyes sunken, his form barely holding on to the last shreds of sanity. He sat in the grove, muttering incoherently as the shadows around him twitched unnaturally. The elves kept their distance, watching warily, though none dared approach. Elowen knelt before him, gripping his frail hands. "Tell me how to make the chains of heaven." The seer's lips twisted into a manic grin, his cracked voice dripping with amusement. "Ah, child of the Black Crown, you ask for what I do not hold." His fingers clenched around hers. "The answer does not rest in my visions. The answer lies by the will of law." Lyra tensed. "Law?" The seer tilted his head, his laughter jagged, broken. "Ordenum, the capital of the goddess of order. That is where you must go." Ordenum, an island fortress far beyond the great desert of the old centre, a port city floating upon the lower oceans where the continent guards kept their sacred watch. Elowen felt a chill crawl up her spine. The journey would take too long. If she left now, she would not return to Elysium in time to secure her standing, her place at Alistair's side. But if she did not go, what would it matter?
A new destination!
They had no choice but to return home before venturing across the sands and sea. Supplies were needed, and more importantly, Sir Aldrich's family had to be informed. It would be a 3-day ride back to Elysium, a journey that once would have felt trivial, now seemed endless. As they mounted their horses and set off, Elowen glanced back at the seer one last time. His milky eyes followed her. "You carry a fate heavier than any crown, little dragon," he murmured, "and it will crush you in the end." She turned away before he could see the fear in her eyes. "Return to Elysium!" They rode hard, pushing their horses through the open plains and winding roads leading back to the capital. When they arrived at the great gates of Elysium, dust clinging to their cloaks and exhaustion burning in their limbs, the air felt wrong. The banners of the kingdom hung low, their edges weighed down by mourning ribbons. The streets were quiet, save for the hushed murmurs of citizens gathered in solemn clusters. As they dismounted and stepped into the city, a guard approached, his face pale. His words struck like a blade. "The king has passed." 2 nights ago.